Hello, everybody, and welcome to the March 8th Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, Eric Donovan.
We'll have 4 races to bring you on this week's episode, including the Tom Fool from Gotham Day, but we'll get started off with the 4th race from March 2nd. It's a allowance optional claim or 2 other than for fillies or mares. Going 6 furlongs, repeat visitor here, Smart Stride.
Yeah, I think, and Eric and I don't, it's not that we disagree here. She's in the blue back here. It's that it's very inconclusive with her, because what happens is she's getting a perfect trip, and David Cohen has her in an absolutely perfect spot as they go around the back of the turn, and it looks like she is just absolutely full of run, like she's just going to swallow the field up. And then David does what he does that I don't particularly agree with. It's not to say I'm right, but he decides that he has to split horses, and I believe that horses that want to rally want to do it outside and in the clear. And in my opinion, when she split horses, she seemed to lose all her momentum.
Yeah, I mean, here she is right here, sitting behind 3 horses on the lead, getting what most people would believe to be a pretty good setup here. Now, obviously, things have to kind of go away a little bit in terms of finding some running room and stuff. I don't know that, I think if he would have had to tip to the outside, he would have had to wait a little bit back more. He would have had to hold the horse a little bit more and, really have to come with a wide run. I don't know here. This is one that, I think he, didn't do anything terribly wrong in here. I just don't know if the horse likes to run down to the inside, which you pointed out.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think, though, he overcommits. He decides that he wants to try to split like that, and now he ends up inside, pinned down towards the inside, and it just feels hard to believe, to me, at least, that she didn't have the momentum to at least get by Promise Me a Cat. I find it hard to believe she was going to beat the winner, North Freeway, who just ran off with the race. I think it would have been a lot closer, and I just think it's a question of horses, their particular running style. And you look at the kind of run she put in last time on the outside, in the clear, in a no-pace race. This was arguably a better field, but I just think that she's a horse that needs to be outside doing her running, and perhaps her last race makes her look worse than she is.
It's a real interesting distinction, because I think most people would look at that trip and say, hey, sitting behind a three-way pace battle, saved ground all the way, didn't have to wait, didn't really have any trouble per se, in the stretch, was able to get through and just wasn't good enough. Whereas, it's an interesting debate as to, okay, well, you got through, but do you really want to be there? Would you be better on the outside? And that's what makes, trip handicapping and looking at these races very difficult.
I totally agree, and I'm not insinuating that it's absolutely right in all circumstances. There are some horses that are rail runners. They want to run inside of horses, but frequently horses won't want to do that, and I think you have to take it as a case-by-case situation. And I just think that this particular race, and even a couple other races we're showing, they're good demonstrations of situations. It may not necessarily mean that Smart Stride is going to do so well going forward, but it's something to think about when you watch races.
We'll move on to our next race now, the Tom Fool from Saturday's Gotham card. We're going to look at the outside 3 horses, the 3 horses to beat in this race, the 4 EMCEE, the 5 CALIBRACHOA, and the 6 Caleb's Posse.
One of the first things to note is that CALIBRACHOA breaks on top. And horses that break sharply like that is very frequently an indication that they're in very good form. And I can remember when I watched this race the first time, when CALIBRACHOA broke like that, I said, oh, he's going to be very tough in this race. He settles into a comfortable position. Caleb's Posse, of course, all the way in the back of the pack where he expected to be. I thought EMCEE, even though he disappointed some people because he was the favorite, I thought he ran extremely well.
Yeah, I don't see what the big disappointment is here. This is a horse that's very light on seasoning. Yeah, he's run great in both his starts, earning 94, 107 by our speed figures and blowout wins. But you're talking about dealing with Caleb's Posse here, who's a multiple Grade 1 winner, arguably one of the best sprinters in the country, or the best sprinter in the country last year, and CALIBRACHOA, who's just an inner track stalwart who does nothing but win on the inner track.
I totally agree with you, Eric. I think you have to. You're trying to analyze these races. You have to forget about what prices they are. That's irrelevant. The question is, how did they run? I think, if anything, if John Velasquez had to take it back, he might think, you know what, maybe I was a little bit over-aggressive going after Royal Courier, a horse that I'm superior to, and maybe he would have tried to relax a little more. I'm not sure how much he could have done that, and EMCEE is somewhat of a forwardly placed horse, but I agree. I thought he ran extremely well. They easily disposed of Royal Courier, and losing to a horse like CALIBRACHOA and Caleb's Posse by just over a length. I mean, people talk about Gulfstream figures. He ran a 107 at Gulfstream. Well, he got a 108 in this race. I thought he ran terrific.
Yeah, he's legit for sure, and the sky's the limit for him. And we'll just hope that these 3 can meet up again in the Carter. It'll be a great race.
Listen, these horses stay sound, hopefully, and we're going to see some very good races from all of these horses. Caleb's Posse, I don't think he needs to be defended in any manner. He puts in that great run. He went his last quarter in 23-1. He just keeps on running. This was a prep race for him, and I don't want to hear any nonsense from people that he's not a 6-furlong horse. I'd take my chance in a fairly run Breeders' Cup Sprint that he'd mow them all down.
Oh, yeah, with a bigger field and a bigger pace. I thought he was a little bit up against it this particular race, going 6 furlongs because it was his first race back. And, you know, a compact field, a short field, I don't think really helps him out. I think a bigger field is, you know, primed for a little bit more hitting up front, and it'll set up his late run. Not that he needs to be set up, per se.
It helps.
It certainly helps. But, yeah, no, he could win at 6 furlongs. I think, you know, ideally, you know, in a race at 6 furlongs, you'd like to have more pace in it. You know, 7 furlongs a mile might be a little more fair for him because he can be a little bit closer and adjust to a, you know, a non-kind of pace scenario. But he's just as good at 6 as he is at 7 or a mile.
I don't want him closer. I want him sitting in the back and making his run. But boy, is he an exciting horse. And this is such a great preview to what could be a very, very exciting year in this division.
Yeah, we'll jump forward to Sunday now, the last couple of races on that card. We'll take a look at race number 8, a New York bred non-winners of 1 allowance for 3-year-old fillies going a mile 70 yards.
Well, the race changed a bit at the start for the 2, Miss Libby, who jumped up in the air, and she ends up well back. The horse that I bet Tony knows, who ends up running 5th in this race. Miss Libby ends up running 4th. Now, Miss Libby ran surprisingly well. It was not a particularly fast race. I thought I bet Tony knows ran a very odd race.
And we'll talk a little bit more about I bet Tony knows, who's forwardly placed near Miss Libby, a horse that likes to be, you know, up on the lead in all of her starts, stepping up off a $30,000 maiden claiming win, has to deal with a little bit of adversity here, coming from farther back than what she's used to.
It's interesting. She's right outside the eventual winner of the race, well back here at this point. You wonder the way the pace seemed to go if getting left didn't help her in a certain way. It didn't help her, though, making this sort of kamikaze middle move that she made, but maybe it was just very hard holding her considering her running style.
Yeah, I mean, Irad Ortiz is probably doing everything he could to prevent her from making a premature move. I bet Tony knows sitting 3rd or 4th down at the rail, and Miss Libby's going to start to make that move fairly soon. And by the time they hit the half-mile pole, she'll be up vying for the lead.
You're going to see her make this move, just bang, all the way to the front. Now, I bet Tony knows is in decent position by Junior Alvarado, and she just seems to spend from this point forward getting sort of, I wouldn't say shuffle's the right word, but she basically gets dropped back all the way almost to last, top of the stretch. You've seen Miss Libby's just made her big move. She's now gone up the lead. Behind her is I bet Tony knows, and just watch I bet Tony knows, who's already lost about a length from the leader, and she will continue to drop back. Top of the stretch, I thought she was absolutely finished. I thought something actually happened to her in this race because she was the favorite. I thought she was a very logical horse. And you see her now, she seems to be doing no running. He's asking her a little bit, but not a whole lot. Miss Libby's made the lead. Here she is all the way back here. What I find interesting is where she ends up finishing and where she gallops out. And it's just incongruous to the way she ran.
Yeah, I mean, you know, still Alvarado's been, you know, working on her for almost a quarter of a mile here to, you know, to keep her kind of closer, and just not really happening. Gets back on track a little bit late. Just an odd kind of race from I bet Tony knows. And I wonder if maybe they'll make some kind of equipment change for her next start, or maybe think about backing her up to 6 furlongs when she won her debut. Look at Miss Libby holding on, though. I mean, she's pretty game.
Miss Libby runs very well in the context of this race. I'm not sure how strong the race was. Here's I bet Tony knows out here, and you see her. She's already moved up into 5th, and she continues in the gallop out. I don't want to make too much about the gallop out, but considering the odd race she ran, dropping all the way back, you wouldn't have thought top of the stretch she'd be running by the horses that ran 1-2 by the time they got early in the turn. And I think that was sort of interesting about her. I agree with you. I think she needs to turn back. She won her first race over a very promising Rick Dutrow horse sprinting. We'll be on the main track pretty soon. Maybe they wait for that, and she goes 7. But I am not giving up on I bet Tony knows. Maybe I'm being stubborn, but it was sort of weird what happened at the end of the race. Miss Libby, I mean, if they can get her to rate just a little bit and she breaks well, she's no killer, but she could be very competitive and not beat a field like this.
No, I agree. I'm interested to see where I bet Tony knows, too, because I thought she had some talent like you in the beginning, and, you know, now after a couple of poor efforts going long, I think people will be off her scent a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's time to turn her back.
Get on to our final race, and this is the last race from Sunday. It's a maiden special weight for New York bred 3-year-olds going 6 furlongs here. 9 Easy Street breaks slowly, and the 4 Tremisi Bay and the 7 Verde Mont end up vying for the lead.
The 4 breaks very sharply. Verde Mont did not break as sharply, and I almost wonder with Verde Mont, who ran a very good 4th in here, but was beaten over 7 lengths, if that horse had broken more sharply, if she would have been a much bigger factor in here, because she probably would have been ahead of the 4, and she might have been able to dictate terms a little bit instead of sort of playing catch-up and forcing that one. I think that Tremisi Bay actually ran okay in here in the sense that she forced all the way on the inside and the race came apart a little late.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you watch the race now and you see the 4 and 7 hitting on the front end, and where the 1, 2, 3 finishers are in this race, they're all kind of sitting back off the pace a little bit. The winner's the 2-horse in about the 2-path in 5th right now, splitting horses. The race does kind of fall apart a little bit for the front end horses, but these horses sitting in the the 2nd pack make a good rally here, and also the 9-horse Easy Street's going to get in the game here.
Yeah, you'll see Easy Street is now moving out here after breaking a little bit slowly. Of course, you have the 2 speeds. Let me ask you a question. Easy Street, okay, gets beaten 6 3/4, broke a length slowly, but had dynamics somewhat in her favor, or his favor. What do you do with this horse next time?
Tricky read here. I mean, obviously, he could run a little bit better. I think a lot's going to have to do with price too. I mean, if he ends up, at a race where, it says where he broke slow, and people are looking at that, then see the close, and he's overbet, then he's a horse that I wouldn't really want too much, because the pace was fast and it should have set up for his late run. If he's dismissed it, it ends up in a tougher race or something like that. He's dismissed at 10 or 15 to 1 or something like that. You get a price like that. You don't think it'll happen, but if you get higher odds, maybe you give him another shot in here. But I have a feeling he's going to get bet off the slow start and the closing third.
The horse I probably want the speeds more than him, because these are the kind of horses that tend to get over bet and end up being traps in subsequent starts. Obviously, it's always about who they're running against and what kind of price they are. But in general, I think the Easy Streets of the world end up being trapped, and the 2 speeds are the ones that I usually favor more, though maybe they were cranked up first time. We love to have your comments. We can always use your help. Trips and traps at NYRAinc.com.
Thanks for watching.